The man standing before you is begging for 7 years. But you don't have to give him 7. You can give him 2 or 20. The difference is one number at the bottom of a piece of paper.
His wife can't afford the mortgage alone. He made one terrible decision and promises he'll never do it again. You listen without expression. 3 days earlier, an envelope appeared in your chambers. No name, no threat, no instructions. Just a photograph of the man's daughter leaving school and a number written on the back. $50,000. 22 years ago, you became a public defender. You represented people who couldn't afford lawyers. You believed in second chances. Eventually, you earned the black robe. At first, the robe felt heavier than you expected. People stopped asking what you thought. They started asking what you decided. And somewhere along the way, you learned that the system didn't need you to care. It only needed you to decide. Brass scale on his desk. He always said the robe could make you forget that the people standing beneath it were still people. Marcus became a judge the same year you did. He kept a small brass scale on his desk. He always said the robe could make you forget that the people standing beneath it were still people. To buy your judgment, you refused. It wasn't even much money, just enough to make a difference. You pushed the envelope away. Judicial evaluation mysteriously dropped. A year later, another offer came. This time it wasn't money. It was a recommendation for your son. You refused again. Then your mother became sick. The treatments were expensive. Your savings disappeared. Your house went on the market. That's when the envelope arrived again. Enough to solve everything. The case attached to it was almost insulting. A fraud conviction. The defendant deserved prison. But the law gave you discretion. 7 years was legal. 20 years was legal. All 3 were justice. That was the trick. Corruption didn't ask you to break the law. It asked you to choose one legal option for an illegal reason. You gave the man 2 years. He walked out crying. His lawyer thanked you. And you went home with $50,000. You told yourself that was the end. The line stops looking real. The second payment was $20,000. The third was $80,000. Soon lawyers knew which judge to approach. They stopped asking directly. They learned the language. And you became very good at pretending you didn't understand it, Marcus noticed. He didn't accuse you. He simply asked why your sentencing patterns had changed. You told him the defendants were different. Marcus nodded. Then he said something you never forgot. Everyone says the defendants are different when they've stopped seeing the pattern. You laughed. He didn't. A few weeks later, Marcus received a case involving a young man named Daniel. The evidence was strong, but the prosecution had hidden evidence that might have changed the entire trial. Marcus ordered a review, and somehow you were assigned the related sentencing matter. That's when another offer appeared. Him harshly. Make sure the possibility of a retrial became irrelevant. You stared at the number for a long time. Then you remembered Marcus's brass scale. You remembered what he'd said, and you accepted. Daniel received 15 years. His mother collapsed outside the courtroom. Marcus watched you from across the bench. He didn't need to say anything. He knew. After court, Marcus came into your chambers. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten you. He simply placed the brass scale on your desk. You told him he didn't understand. You told him about your mother, the bills, the house, everything you'd sacrificed. Marcus listened. Then he said, I understand all of it. That's why this is worse. 6 months later, the investigation began. Financial investigators noticed something strange. Lawyers connected to your courtroom had clients receiving unusual sentences, and the pattern followed you. They called you into a room with 3 investigators and a recorder. They placed the evidence on the table. You could have confessed. Instead, you found the technical answer. You explained judicial discretion. Every decision was legally permitted. For a moment, you almost convinced yourself. Then they placed one final document in front of you, Daniel's file. On the last page was a handwritten note from Marcus. Justice requires truth. You knew immediately what had happened. Marcus had given them everything. Not because he hated you, but because he couldn't allow the robe to become a shield. Your license was revoked. Your accounts were frozen. The house was sold. Daniel eventually received a new trial, and the conviction was overturned. Everything you thought you were protecting was gone anyway. Years later, you saw Marcus again in the same courthouse. He was older. His hair was gray. But the brass scale was still on his desk. You asked him why he kept it. Marcus looked at you for a long time. Then he said, every sentence has 2 people attached to it, the person receiving it and the person giving it. You wanted to apologize. You wanted to explain. But none of it mattered. Because the most terrifying thing about corruption isn't that it changes what you believe. It's that eventually, it changes what you can justify. You once thought a judge could decide what justice looked like. You were wrong. A judge doesn't create justice. A judge protects it. Every time you chose money over that responsibility, you didn't rewrite a sentence. You rewrote yourself. And that is the one sentence you never learned how to appeal.